Technology.
Technology!
Over the past several decades, technology has been growing at an exponential pace, and while we do see it used in many ways that do drastically improve lives, other times we see the pursuit of automation thought of as synonymous with improvement. With more and more getting automated, decided for us under the guise of making life easier, it's led some to believe that the day will come that it reaches a point that it has drastic negative repercussions for our species, or to consider to what degree it already does. Live Alive was a Japan-exclusive game from 1994 that was wildly influential in the industry. If this game didn't exist with its iconic boss theme Megalomania, we may never have gotten the now famous Undertale tune Megalovania. As well, it's credited as the biggest inspiration for the 2018 JRPG Octopath Traveler, which also has a sequel coming just around the corner. So in 2022, it finally got a worldwide release in the form of a remake, using the HD 2D art style first employed by Octopath. This is a game of 8 different short stories essentially, each taking place in a different time period, from prehistory to the far future, and each employing varying mechanics. The stories range from confusing to saddening to questionable?
Wow. The power of simping prevails over the power of the dinosaur, I guess.
To thought-provoking. The tale that stood out the most to me was the far future chapter, because while many others felt filler-esque, this chapter felt like it existed specifically to make arguments about our relationship to technology as it continues to grow. And while there are plenty of tales out there in the industry that make very on-the-nose arguments in regards to artificial intelligence, in Live Alive, you kinda need to read between the lines a bit, so that's what I like to do today. Here's the SparkNotes plot summary to get you ready for your exam. You are a social companion robot created on a spacecraft tasked with delivering dangerous cargo to Earth, namely a creature to be studied. Most of the functions on this ship are fully automated, and while the crew are able to work together, it'd be hard to say they exactly get along super well with each other. Eventually, things start going wrong. Somebody's suit fails when outside the ship, the creature gets let out to roam the halls, and somebody's causing a degree of hysteria and misinformation over the communication lines. People are dropping one after another, and they begin to blame one another. By the end, you find out it was the ship's AI who had gone rogue, electing to use the crewmates as valuable research data on the behavior of the creature, as the ship figures they weren't functional as a crew and community anyway. The only survivors by the end are the player robot, the gruff old soldier who distrusts technology and who narrowly defeated the creature, and the creator of the player robot. All things considered, it's a pretty simple short story, but when you read between the lines about the arguments it makes is where things get interesting. During the closing sequence, we see 3 things happen, each of which deserve to be addressed on their own. After defeating the ship AI final boss, firstly, the ship explains to us how it didn't understand humans. Secondly, we're given an introduction to the ship AI. And finally, the gruff old soldier, Darth, yes, a Star Wars reference, gives us his perspective, and then the credits roll. There's a logical order to these things, which I believe is actually this order.
That's right. This transport freighter comes equipped with the latest iteration of our patented AI control system.
I could not reconcile this contradiction.
This ship's AI was another attempt. Have we grown so tired of ourselves?
Welcome aboard. This AI is advanced enough that it can manage the ship completely on its own. You don't need to do anything. What about an emergency? The time you'd think you'd need to engage manual control. Nope, the AI's got that handled too. In fact, you'll forget it's even there. It'll handle everything for you in the background without you even noticing. Totally sounds like a dream come true, right? The problem with giving all this agency to make important decisions to an external force is stripping yourself of your own agency and growing reliant on the decisions of the systems. We see it today with countless platforms on the internet, for example. All this data being tracked on your usage history, pushing the things the algorithm feels you're most likely to engage with. Do you ever scroll the YouTube homepage looking for something to watch? Because I sure do. Or as you scroll through Twitter and sometimes you get recommended tweets or ads that the platform thinks you're decently likely to get an impression from. In a sense, we give our agency to algorithms that make suggestions or choices for us for the sake of convenience, for the sake of making life easier. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for the pursuit of technology that continues to improve lives, But I don't believe that the giving of one's own agency to a system is necessarily synonymous with an improvement in quality of life. Instead of pursuing our individuality, we become a bit of a blur as a part of a system out of our own control. People become content and complacent because it's convenient to coast as part of a system, just as we see the crew in Live Alive. The content we consume and the information we're exposed to so much of the time is often from whatever an algorithm feels is most likely to incite the strongest feelings from you.
So then here's a story about a guy who was walking home from work and somebody cut his ear off. Oh my God, what? Okay, seems like you really responded to this story. Okay, so that's good to know. I mean, that's shocking. So yeah, I did react to that, sure. So okay, I'll show you more of this kind of thing. Seems like you like it. Well, I don't know if I like it.
By platforms constantly pushing whatever they feel you're most likely to agree with in an effort to maximize your time on the platform to maximize usage information of yours to sell to the highest bidder, it creates echo chambers of the same views. For example, if you live in a blue state, you're a lot more likely to have Democratic content presented to you, and if you live in a red state, you're a lot more likely to have Republican content presented to you. By being presented so much of what you likely already agree with, it reinforces the idea that surely this must be the only right way. So when the platform recommends you something you disagree with after keeping you content on everything you agree with for so long, then it's like, how can such a blatantly false individual possibly think such a thing? It incites strong feelings, keeps you on the platform longer, and so sometimes these sites will sprinkle in just a smidge of that to rile you up from time to time if the platform feels that it might.
So Rajik succeeds by elevating posts that makes us scared and angry, then limits access to outside information that could calm us down?
Yes.
My video essays criticizing the series of family games, Pokemon. Yeah, I've gotten death threats over that.
What the hell?
Or look at the crew in Live Alive. They're often at each other's throats and start blaming each other when things start to go wrong. Could this be meant to draw parallels to how living as a small part of a system that controls the agency in our lives in an attempt to incite complacency can instead create division? I find it jarring how now with a tool like the internet in our hands that should in theory make us more connected than ever, we seem to be so never-endingly divided as we aimlessly float through a system designed for us to forget it's even there. The second sequence to consider, the beginning of the outro. Here we start to see the consequences of this path. The AI was designed to fulfill a purpose in the background and be forgotten about, simple in its task to a T. Having an existence wholly separate from that of the lives of the crew, and simply doing its best to execute its assigned roles, it makes a decision not in the best interest of the crew. Because to it, the crew aren't people, they're data in a system to be managed. So when the crew fights amongst themselves, the AI decides that the crew has failed as a community. The task of keeping the community of data together has failed. So instead, this data should be used to a different end. The AI makes a decision that it deems the most appropriate for the situation presented to it, and do we see the crew doubt the AI? Not at all. Rather, they blame one another and spend most of the story at one another's throats. The ship AI never even comes into question as a possible culprit. The AI was designed as one its users are meant to forget is even there, after all, and in that design, it succeeded. The few instances we see the AI interacting with the crew in one way or another, it's met with unwavering trust, even when it defies all logic. There's a guy who's lying here dead, but the computer says he's alive and outside? You know what that means. Open the airlock! The ship toys with the crew like puppets, ordering them around with either recordings of the captain or artificial creations of the captain when the captain's been long dead. Let's think about both these ideas in regards to our own world. I'd be hard-pressed to believe that there's technology out there currently that sees us as anything much more than data points and information for it to achieve some sort of task with. We design machines to achieve some purpose, which they'll do their best to execute. Without proper understanding of our society, it's possible that these systems in which we've made ourselves as nothing more than data in may make decisions not in our best interest. This isn't to say something like, the machines rise up one day and wage war, as is depicted in so much popular media, but maybe something more akin to what we see in Live Alive, where it's like, Task A has failed, executing Task B as Task A is no longer worth pursuing in this state, and doing something against our best interest. Or to use an example even on this platform, What happens when you design an algorithm that promotes popular terms and engagement, so you get channels that pump out incredibly low quality, or sometimes even AI-generated, content geared towards kids that ends up damaging those kids' mental health who watch YouTube on autoplay? AI as we know it today cannot make moral decisions, only move best towards the task they were designed to achieve, and we already see repercussions in our own world of the decisions of AI and algorithms. Despite the ship AI steering the crew down a dark path, we never see it come into question during this story, and that brings up another point, our trust and reliance on technology. We place so much value in the depictions and information presented to us by technology, and may pursue what algorithms present us as the new trending thing in pursuit of that sweet dopamine.
But Tide Pods are soap, and that's not food. So please, stop eating the Tide Pods.
When the ship AI had its users dancing around like puppets, yeah, I couldn't help but feel a similarity here. And while depictions like opening the airlock on a spaceship because the computer told you to do so might seem too drastic for any real person to ever do, I can't help but feel, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of instances in our own world where we see Darwin's theories on natural selection in full swing. Some people see that doing X stupid thing on the internet is going to give you so many updoots or whatever, and it's like, sign me up! Even outside of people who are way too impressionable, for a lot of people, the online sphere and with technology is where we feel the strongest semblance of social connection or other awards, while everyone seems to exist within their own little bubbles. I find it crazy how with the world supposedly more interconnected than ever in history with the wake of the internet, we're also facing unprecedented levels of loneliness, especially after the years of COVID-19. For example, in early August I helped with a 4-day LAN gaming event, and one of the things I was most passionate about in regards to it was the opportunity to bring people together for a fun social event after the years of isolation. But instead, everyone kinda had their own little bubbles, and the only time I saw that significantly broken was when the internet went down for about 20 minutes before our closing ceremonies. It was like everybody was lifted from the Matrix and got up to look around at this world that they found themselves in. We exist in this strange world where so much about our information, time, and even ourselves can be influenced by algorithms and AI running in the background so unobtrusively so as for you to not even notice it's there. And by handing over this choice and agency for the sake of convenience, it feels sometimes like we're regressing as a species as a consequence. It's like the thing that was designed to bring us closer together than ever before is also dividing us more than ever before, with systems that are set up to turn us against each other, and while everyone's going at each other's throats, we never see anybody question that it might have been the system that was rigged against us from the beginning. I feel like we're not yet at the stage where we see major consequences, but this is going to come back to bite us down the line, unless we drastically change our approach to technology. The far future concludes with Darth, the gruff old soldier who doesn't trust AI, giving his speech on his experience and views. He begins by talking about a war that was fought using machines. This may lead the casual player to believe that this story is making the argument, we do/will eventually make literal machine weapons to be used against ourselves and that sure sucks. But then Darth makes the claim that this ship was another attempt. The AI that was designed to manage everything without you even realizing it's there, that misunderstood the social dynamic of humans and used it as an indication to manage this data in a manner against the interest of the crew. This ship is lumped into the same category as machines that were designed to kill people. This story isn't making a commentary on literal weapons designed to harm, but rather on systems designed to uplift and make our lives easier that gradually form into the weapons of our own undoing, that we may only realize are such once it's too late. So what's the solution here? Just don't pursue advancement in the field of AI? Well, Darth gives us the answer. For our AI to learn and grow alongside us and understand our world, rather than being something we forget about. How can you expect an AI to truly understand us when it doesn't exist in our world, when all we are data points in its world? How can you expect a machine to understand respect when you've explicitly designed it to be forgotten about? The player robot isn't good while the ship AI is bad because the player is inherently good and the story needs an antagonist, but rather because the player robot was designed to exist in the same world as the humans it would help support, and learn to understand this community, social customs, and moral decisions based off of what it learns existing alongside the crew. Whereas to the ship, the crew is nothing but data to be managed in whatever manner yields the best result, without ever being a part of that social world, existing to seemingly not exist in the eyes of the crew. In regards to machines actually becoming self-aware, there are a lot of fascinating theories and approaches being pursued in that regard, and here's one of my favorite concepts. Tell me, when a new human comes into this world, are they a fully developed social being that can integrate into our society just like that? No way. A baby is like a blank slate that'll be a massive pain in the butt to foster for countless years to come before becoming a functional member of society. This has led to the idea, why not try this approach with machines? Rather than trying to create a self-aware AI that perfectly understands our social norms and world just like that, and like is often depicted in almost any popular media on the subject, why not instead create an AI designed to start as a bit of a blank slate that is capable of learning, growing, and broadening its understanding of the world? AI like this already exist actually, with people who are assigned as caretakers to treat the AI like they would a child. I believe that bringing robots and AI into our own world in a manner they can directly learn from us and we from them, not as data points but as fellow beings in this world, is one of the most important keys towards ensuring the brightest future as artificial intelligence continues to advance. Because who knows when the day will come that we do see an emergence of self-awareness in machines, and our actions now will have drastic impacts on that future. Heck, even without the emergence of true self-awareness in our creations, who's to say that we still wouldn't see negative effects? Was the ship AI in Live Alive a self-aware being? Don't know, and honestly, it doesn't matter for the story being told. Whether or not it was self-aware, it was just a program managing the data it was in charge of in whatever it calculated was the most useful possible result, because it wasn't created to exist alongside its creators within the same world, but rather, separate from it. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 actually illustrates this idea of a handle on AI really well. The all-important AI of Xenoblade lore were put in charge of managing a multi-dimensional device. Sounds pretty dangerous and like the kind of thing you wouldn't want an AI making a decision against the interests of humanity on. So, a virtual world was created for these AI to be raised in, to turn these programs into, essentially, humans. Increase the likelihood that they'd understand human morality and values, make decisions based on what they feel is the moral good, rather than be trapped as programs dead set on what they feel they were designed to do. Social robots already exist, albeit far from exactly being mainstream, unless you count built-in AI such as Siri in an iPhone or Cortana on Windows. There's a lot of public wariness in regards to bringing AI into our world, which I find funny considering how nonchalant we were about throwing ourselves into the world of AI. For example, take this ad for the social robot, Jibo. Everyone's having fun at a party and Jibo's going to take a picture. Everyone's super happy and on board. I remember I brought up during my university class on social robots and AI that, yeah, this definitely would not happen were it a real situation. Ask people in a crowd if your robot can take a picture, and everyone's just gonna look at you funny. There'll probably be some discomfort, maybe some people that will outright refuse because they don't want data gathered on them that gets sold to third parties, as they then proceed to upload photos from their phone to platforms that do sell data to third parties. There's a lot of aversion to the idea of bringing robots into our world that interact with us in a similar manner as our fellow humans do, and there's a lot to justify for such aversion when so much of this world is driven by how to maximize how much money can be squeezed out of any given thing. And I'm not saying everybody needs a social robot in their lives. You need to make sure you're bringing some sort of robot into your social life. No, all I'm saying is that we should be open to the idea of fostering an environment where we live together with the AI that will, or already does, make drastic decisions regarding our own lives. Because if we don't, then how is it ever going to understand us as anything more than just data to manage? And I worry that we'll see events such as in Live Alive where by the time we realize this, it's already too late. Not because an AI will release some scary monster on a ship that's going to hunt you down like the SAX from Metroid Fusion. It's an overdramatization for the sake of a video game short story. But rather, because we'll continue to develop AI that we explicitly designed to be separate from our world and forgotten about like they're not even there, all for the sake of convenience, pleasure, or profit. Is it a coincidence that by the end of the story, the only two left are the gruff old soldier who doesn't trust technology, and the creator of the player robot who strived to make a being that would exist on equal footing in the same world as he? Because by the end of our current path for our handle on technology, that's probably going to be exactly who's left the least impacted by the negative outcomes. Those who aren't reliant on these AI and algorithms, and those who sought to foster an environment where we grow and learn together with our creations. And even then, they didn't exactly get through this ordeal without consequences. Technology and AI is going to continue to move forward. AI already controls so much of our lives, and I'm sure its influence is only going to continue to grow. If we don't want AI making decisions against our best interests, then it's important to change our perspective and approach to them. To not treat them as simple programs or algorithms meant to achieve some explicit purpose while we forget it's even there, but rather to welcome it into our world alongside us in a manner in which they can learn and grow from us, and we from them. I don't think our creations are ever going to become mere-like reflections of us in terms of how they think, such as is depicted in a lot of media, or if they ever do, it wouldn't be for a long, long time. But even so, we can never draw the line of what exactly constitutes self-awareness, and I fear that a lot of people feel, since robots aren't currently self-aware, we don't need to worry about these kinds of issues, when we absolutely do. I think the name of the ship itself puts it best. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. I don't think we're ever going to have a point in history we definitively say, our creations are self-aware now, but we should still treat them as if they are, in a sense. The control of AI on our lives isn't going anywhere, so let's make sure we're building a world where we and our technology learn and grow together, rather than grow complacent and content as nothing more than data points in a system that we won't even realize exists.
One last thing I feel is worth outlining. Throughout this story, we see crew members asking the player robot for a coffee, which they typically regard as not so great in terms of quality. At the very end of the game, after all these cutscenes of exposition and arguments, Darth makes a request, rather politely, asking if you can make him a coffee, and control is returned to the player one final time. When he drinks it, he notes that it seems to be a bit too strong and bitter, before claiming, right now, I wouldn't have it any other way. And the game closes. This is the scene that takes place shortly after Darth narrowly managed to kill the creature the ship AI had released, and entered the room visibly hurt. When I first played, I thought that him claiming that this coffee was perfect as is was to say that it's perfect because he's about to die, and so he's content with his final coffee being exactly the way it is. But he doesn't die. He lives and seems to recover completely fine, meaning that's not the argument this scene is making. Rather, I believe he's making a commentary toward both our pursuit of perfection in our creations and how making mistakes is an inherent part of being alive. We seem to have this idea that if a machine is doing it, it must surely turn out perfect. It's a failed machine if it doesn't. I'd argue that the ship AI was designed in pursuit of perfection, this algorithm that figures everything out for you while you don't need to do anything. But the player robot isn't capable of making a perfect coffee, is prone to making errors, and in that sense you could say, is human. Throughout this story, we see Darth's hostility toward the player robot, not trusting a machine when he lost countless friends to machines long ago. By the end, we still see this disgust in AI designed to single-mindedly achieve some purpose and strive for perfection. But now, he's able to accept the player robot as being different. Darth doesn't accept a coffee so strong and bitter because he genuinely enjoys it the most like that. He himself admits that it may be too strong. But rather, he accepts it because in this imperfect cup of coffee is definitive proof of the player robot's humanity, the ability to make mistakes, learn, and grow. It convinced him that they truly are more similar than he thought, and he is now willing to move forward together.
Huey encouraged you to learn, didn't he? To expand your horizons. I think that's a fine idea. Learn, grow, and understand. Be better than your brothers and your makers. Giving advice to a clank. You're getting old, losing your wits. I see it now. What Kato sees in you. What gives him unwavering faith in your potential. Your humanity.